Kalafulehiatu, good evening and welcome to this bulletin of BCN News. Firstly, the New Zealand Government's Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for Foreign Affairs, the Right Honourable Winston Peters, has confirmed that New Zealand will purchase the COVID-19 vaccines when available for the realm countries like Niue. The New Zealand government signed into an international effort the COVAX facility, and according to the New Zealand Foreign Minister Winston Peters last week, this agreement will ensure that New Zealand receives enough vaccines to cover up to 50% of New Zealand's population as well as the realm countries. BCN reached out to Dr. Helen Patosis-Harris, Associate Professor at Auckland University, who specializes in vaccinology. Most of her research is on vaccines, the effects of vaccines, and vaccine safety. I asked Dr. Patosis-Harris to explain the efforts that New Zealand has taken to have access to the vaccines.
So New Zealand put lots of eggs in lots of baskets to try and ensure access to vaccine as soon as possible. So one of the things that they've done is to enter into the COVAX facility, which is an international effort, and that can guarantee us some doses for our population and the realm. Also, they've been pursuing options directly with the vaccine developers, for example, talking to Australia, as well as looking to see if New Zealand can also help with some manufacturing as well here. So there's a lot of different angles being looked at and worked on really hard.
Dr. Patosis-Harris says that the vaccines are likely to become available for use towards the middle of next year after all the tests are completed and the vaccine's efficacy is confirmed.
Well, things are very fast and are going quite well for the vaccines that are in the front. There's a few vaccines that are in what we call very late phase trials. So those are the really big trials that are comparing the vaccine with a placebo or sort of a dummy injection. And if those trials go well, the results are expected at the end of the year at the earliest. And if the results look good and the vaccine is protective and is shown to be quite safe, then there may be vaccines rolling out shortly afterwards. But it doesn't mean we're going to have access to them straight away. That might take some time because, of course, there's a whole world's population waiting for vaccines. So it will probably take a few months after that to start seeing the first doses coming through.
Even though the New Zealand government will purchase the vaccines for Niue, it will be on a reimbursement basis. The Niue government will have to pay for the doses that it needs. The New Zealand government has entered into an agreement that will ensure enough vaccines are available to cover up to 50% of the population. The government's Treasury Department has sent out a list of finance management directives urging the departments to manage, control and monitor their budgets closely 9 months before the end of financial year. The directives were sent out via email to all heads of ministries, departments and all public servants, saying that as the year progresses, we would like to urge and encourage departments to manage, control and monitor your budgets closely to limit spending, especially for this COVID-19 period till the end of this fiscal year. We have very limited resources given the downturn in government revenues and the economy as a whole, with a government budget deficit of 5.7 million. In addition, government also have other competing priorities on infrastructure, machinery, acquisition and maintenance. The list of directives instructed purchase orders processes to be fully complied with. If there is no purchase order, then there should be no payments made. Suppliers are to ensure that they get a valid purchase order from the government before releasing or rendering any services or goods. For service level agreements, departments are required to set up agreements with local contractors for ongoing repairs and maintenance if the overall total costs are more than $5,000. All departments are required to provide their sponsorship policy guidelines and an expenditure summary to Treasury Department. Departments are also to control spending and not to undermine the budget deficit. And protecting our coral reef from their natural predators and trying to grow or propagate certain species of coral is the focus of a coral reef restoration project. 3 years ago, local dive operator Magical Niue started a coral reef restoration project to propagate coral and to deal with coral-eating predators. They started with a nursery 12 meters deep, but Cyclone Tino earlier this year destroyed that, so they've rebuilt several meters deeper to around 18 meters underwater.
So we realized we had to go even deeper, and we had to change the whole approach. We can't get into a mass production because now the nurseries are 16 to 18 meters. It takes a lot of dives just to set up one nursery. So we had to change the approach completely, not do mass production, rely on nature to do it for us. So what I mean, this particular species is quite on the verge of extinction, so the unrelated corals grow too far from each other to reproduce successfully. So we bring them together into a nursery, 50 or 60 fragments, and unlike what you do overseas, we take the largest fragments possible because we want them to reach maturity and spawn as soon as possible before the next cyclone hits. So we get very, very large fragments because sexual maturity is determined not by age but by size. So these ones are already at the size of sexual maturity. They just need to get re-established or established at the nursery and hopefully produce at the next event, which is next month. If not, it will be next year. That's the idea, to do it as fast as possible. Let nature do it. And nature, of course, does it always more effectively than we do. But the idea of giving nature a helping hand by getting these corals together. And the idea is to have few nurseries all along the west coast. And then, of course, is escalate the recovery of the reef of that particular species because it is on the verge of extinction.
The serious outbreak of the Drupella snails, or what is known locally as the fofouli, has killed off many coral on the west coast around Alofi Bay, heading south.
The Drupella snails, or the fofouli, or samatuki, whatever you call it in Niuean, a bit more complicated because there are so many of them. It was one of the chain reactions from the mass bleaching in 2017. They started in 2017, and I warned and I said that they will multiply. In 2018, it got even worse. People saying, "Oh, they come and go," but no, they didn't. 2019, it was worse still. And this season, it's really total outbreak. Last season, for example, we had the hotspot just south of the wharf, decimating the whole reef. And this year, the outbreak extends a few kilometers all the way to the southern part of Alofi Bay. So when two divers collect 1,000 snails in one dive, it just tells you. They actually, if they are left alone, they can and they will decimate the reef completely. I mean, we collected since last year 15,000 or close to 15,000 snails, and still the outbreak is getting worse. Imagine if we have not collected those 15,000. Now, some people say, "Oh, you should leave them there because part of the ecosystem." They don't know what they're talking about because they don't dive. You dive, you see that they are the ones who actually destroy the ecosystem. But interesting that they started from the mass bleaching in 2017. The whole ecosystem got out of balance. We lost heaps of corals, number of fish gone down at the reef. A lot of eggs survived from the snails, and therefore they multiply, and they're getting like a snowball effect at the moment. So I believe this is the greatest threat to Niue's reef are the fofouli.
The other predator is the crown of thorns starfish, which is known to destroy and kill hundreds of corals and is a very fast-growing predator.
With my team, we've been hunting every single one of them under the guidance of experts from overseas, and also get the approval from fisheries here. We've been hunting every single one of them. Sometimes I would put aside days instead of going with tourists because they're only active in the winter. We just focus to get every one of them. You see the evidence, we have to go and find it. So we've been hunting every single one of them, and it paid off. This season we saw only one at 32 meters in April. It took us 4 dives, deep dive, to get it, including night dive. We found it at the end and we killed it. We saw 2 more babies, which is a worry, but that's it. The whole season, absolutely not even one, although we've done a lot of diving in Niue this season. So it sounds like it's under control now. Time will tell whether they'll surface again or not. You have to remember that each mature coral now produces a lot of babies next month event. So every coral we save, we're not saving just one coral and the one around it, we're saving the next generations as well. So the mature corals that currently on the reef, the healthy ones, are the ones that will determine what the reef will be like, or the rate of recovery for the next 3 years until the babies reach maturity and produce. So every coral we save, it contributes towards the recovery of the reef.
And yes, there was an earthquake yesterday afternoon in Tonga, recorded 6.7 on the Richter scale and at a depth of 10 kilometers. The earthquake occurred at 14 minutes past 2 yesterday afternoon. The BCN News team were recording in the studio when the earthquake was felt. It had been a while since we had felt a tremor or an earthquake. which prompted many locals to reach out on social media to confirm if it was actually a quake. The notice from the Niue Met Office was emailed at 2:33 p.m, confirming the earthquake and that there was no threat of a tsunami. And trying to figure out what you want to do when you leave high school is a tough decision. This next story is about some 11-year-old students at Niue High School trying to find out what it's like to be reporters. This school term, BCN has been part of the Niue High School Careers Program, promoting working in the media and journalism to the students. The BCN News team spent an hour with the Year 9 students earlier this week and putting their reporting skills to the test. This segment is on the school's human rights banner competition with the message Fighting Against Bullying. Here's more on this story with Year 9 students Kavana Funaki and Nive Heko.
Hi, my name is Vana.
My name is Nive.
We are Year 9 students and we are the BCN student reporters for today. First question is, please explain the message on your banner.
Our message on our banner is we spoke up for our victim. It's like for school for people who's getting bullied. It's 6 cruel hours of our victims' lives, and the other quote that we had at the top is speak up for yourself and speak up for our victims. So that's basically what we are doing. We just spoke up for the victims that's getting bullied at school.
Okay. The second question is, how long did it take you to make this?
It took us 2 to 3 days. On the first 2 days, it was all good, and we all had something to do. We worked as a team and we made it all the way to the end. We had a few troubles about getting some stuff smudged, but we managed to cover it up real quick.
How would you feel if you won the competition today?
I would feel so proud in the people who worked with me with the banner, because we took our time with it, and I would feel also proud for our classmates for taking support for us and choosing wisely who the people are to do the banner.
Thank you
for joining us today. This is Kavana
And this is Nive
for BCN News.
Thank you, Kavana and Nive, for that story. And that was a beautiful message by young Chrisanne Talepita. Blowing out someone else's candle won't make yours any brighter. And with that, good night.